Hi, and welcome to CMO Journeys, where we sit down with the marketing leaders shaping some of today's most innovative brands. I'm Christian Benak, and I explore the stories behind CMOs, how they lead, how they grow, and how they think about partnering with agencies. Today's guest is Nav Singh, the Chief Marketing Officer of Eightfold AI, one of the fastest growing talent intelligence platforms in the world. Nav's career is a rare blend of deep technical expertise and powerful storytelling. After more than a decade in product leadership at companies like Oracle, Cisco, and Palo Alto Networks, where he helped drive over $1 billion in bookings, he made a deliberate pivot into marketing to bring technology and human-centered narratives together. Now at Eightfold, he's shaping the company's global story around responsible agentic AI and more fair, skills-driven future of work. Nav, welcome to CMO Journeys.
Thank you, Christian. It was great. It's great to be here.
Right. So you've just stepped into this role at Eightfold after nearly a decade building Palo Alto Networks in their security business, I believe. What's been one of the most energizing or maybe surprising parts of this first few months here at Eightfold?
Yeah, I just joined about a month and a half ago, so very recent. The first thing that I did was just listen to people. I've completed about 40 or so one-on-ones. And I just posted on LinkedIn as well that in this age of AI, right, it's pretty easy for anyone to think, I'm going to ask my Google Gemini gem about what I should do, and or ChatGPT, right, give me a plan, 30, 60, 90-day plan. And I actually, in fact, get a lot of that from candidates. All that is great. I think it can definitely give you a structure, a good start, or a framework. But nothing beats really listening to people who've been here for a year, 2 years, some people who've been here from the very beginning of the journey, like 9 years, right? So they tell you things that are not available in a slide deck. They tell you things that they're hearing from customers. They tell you things that they're hearing from customers outside of formal meetings. They tell you things that we're hearing from industry analysts, right? So that has been really enlightening for me and also energizing because I get to hear the opportunity that's in front of us. So that's been the amazing part of my first 1.5 months.
There you go. I love it. And especially coming from an AI company, not to just rely on AI.
Yes.
I very much agree. So just to rewind a bit, you've described your career as a journey across product, technology, storytelling. If we were to rewind then to those early days, maybe your time at Deloitte, Oracle, what did you think your career was going to look like back then? And how is it actually different than where you've landed here today?
So um, I got hired into Deloitte from campus, from where I did my MBA. And at that time, I just thought, partner at Deloitte would be awesome. And that's what I thought I would do. I didn't know what the world was like, the professional world, because I did my engineering and right after that did my MBA. So I didn't have any work experience before my MBA. And I thought that this would be just my path, like becoming a tech partner in a tech consulting company. But very soon, 2000 hit, and we didn't have enough projects. Deloitte didn't have enough projects, and I had to look for another job. And so I worked at a startup, worked at Oracle. In fact, when I was working at a startup, somebody approached me from Oracle and said, "Would you like to do product management?" And I didn't know what that was. And I said, "I don't know what that is." And the person asked, "Can you describe your role, what you're doing at this startup?" It was a small startup which was doing middleware, Java-based servers. So I described my job, and he said, meeting customers, deciding should go into the product, and working with engineering. He said, "What you're describing is actually product management." So I did not have any idea of what these different fields look like when I was in my MBA. All I heard was finance, investment banking, consulting. Those were the two hot areas that everybody wanted to go for. And so figured out product management was something. When I started doing that at Oracle, I really loved it, and I did that for another 15 years. And then at that time, again, I was working at a startup. So kind of my pivots have been at startups, not in large companies. When I was working at a startup, in 2018. Um, at that time, actually, it was 2013 to 2016. So at that time, it was a small company, 35 people company. We were doing product, and I was also, wearing multiple hats like you do in a small startup. I did some of the website work since we didn't have a dedicated marketing team, and I did some research on how to grow email followers from email campaigns. And I found that work really fascinating because you had to connect with customers or with users, not just based on the technical specs, but also emotionally. And that I found really captivating. After that, I had, 3 or 4 job offers when I was going to change my job from that startup. One of them was marketing, which is Palo Alto Networks. Everything else was product. I said, let me give it a try and see how it goes. Over the next 10 years, I just did marketing because I again loved that switch and loved connecting to customers. And so I had a really solid background in understanding product in the tech business and also working with customers to understand the difference between what they say they need and what they might truly require.
That's great. Yeah.
And then, I was able to use that knowledge in creating marketing stories.
Yeah, that's great. So at Palo Alto in particular, you described that you helped drive more than $1 billion in business with this kind of narrative driven marketing. When you zoom out on that chapter, like what's one play from that playbook that you're already bringing into Eightfold, and maybe what's one thing that you won't repeat, a lesson that you learned?
Um, One thing that I really am already bringing into Eightfold is just using newer technology, which is using AI. So one of the campaigns that we built at Palo Alto Networks w- was using AI. So everything from concepts to ideas to taglines to actually creating videos using VO3 was done using AI. So that's one thing that I'm really bringing to Eightfold, because in many cases you don't really need to have actual, shooting and actors and everything else. You still need ideas and execution, but all of that can be done through AI. And what I one mistake which I will not be repeating, well, it's about getting so fixated on your product that you forget about customers' needs. It's all about asking customers and talking to customers and really figuring out what they need, and then building stories that connect the customer emotionally to what you are offering.
Yeah, I love that. The truth is always the customer. You can sit in raw rooms, all day long and come up with the best plans, but at the end of the day, the market is going to tell us, what's connecting and what's not.
Yeah, and if I can add to that what you just said, right? One of the trainings we did was about the hero's journey.
Mhm.
And in the hero's journey, one of the things that just stuck with me is you're not the hero. You're the guide. The customer is the hero. And I think oftentimes we forget that. And I just need to remind myself and the team that what we're building is for the hero, that's the customer, and we are just the guide.
Yeah, no, I love that. So that's a great lesson in of itself. What about talk to me a little bit about maybe a past boss or a mentor that still maybe sits in the back of your mind that you kind of hear them saying in the back of your mind and helping you make some of these big calls today? What was a lesson that maybe someone else taught you?
Yeah, one of the lessons that I learned was that there is, in order to get the best out of people, there is actually a certain ratio of feedback that you give to people in your team, and there's a ratio of positive to critical feedback that you give that actually results in best performing teams. So there has been some study that has been done, and that study actually applies even to relationships and applies to marriages and divorces and so on. The What they say is the best ratio is 5 times if you give positive feedback, then you have the right to give one corrective feedback. So corrective feedback is required. It's necessary for corrective action, but oftentimes we lead with that and forget to praise the things that the team is doing right. And the best performing teams, they say the ratio is 5:1.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. I thought you might say 2 to 1. So that's a lot. That's a bar that I need to personally increase on my side. So that's a great learning. So um, great. Well, I appreciate you sharing a lot of your background. I'd like to shift gears a bit and talk a little bit more now. I know you're only about a month and a half in, you said, but I read that one of your first priorities there is sharpening the story so that everyone can tell it with precision and soul. What does that look like in practical terms in your, say, first 90 to 180 days?
Yeah. Um, we need to paint a picture of the world that we are going to be in, and our sellers need to do that, and they need to do that with conviction as well as with precision, so that everybody is doing that at scale. The world that is going to be our world of work in the future is going to be a world of humans and agents. Humans are going to be creating goals for agents, supervising them, really creating or evaluating the agents, and agents are going to be doing the tasks. That, I believe, will fundamentally break the relationship, the linear kind of relationship that we've had so far between the employment or the number of workers you have in your organization and output. That relationship is going to break because you'll have agents doing those tasks. And in that world, what does the world of HR look like? And many of the customers are not fully, um, they don't have a clear idea of what that world might look like. And as they are on that journey, we can be their guide in helping them reach that world. As an example, some of the areas in HR are very amenable to agentic work. For example, taking interviews of candidates. You could start with just the screening interviews. I've done some screening interviews with, in fact, with Eightfold. All our candidates have to go through an AI agent interviewer. So the advantage of AI agent is it can work at the candidate's schedule. There's no scheduling required. Whenever the candidate is free, that's when they do the interview. Second, the agent doesn't get tired. So it's not like the interview will go poorly if the human interviewer has had a bad day. So they can do that at scale. They can do that with fairness, not with no bias. So we evaluate what the person has done rather than how they sound, how they look and feel, right? So this is something that can be done by an agent at scale. Like an agent can do 1 million interviews to screen all the candidates to give you a very unbiased view. You're not going to connect more with one candidate just because the person cheers for your own football team that you like, right? So I think for us, it what storytelling means is for our sellers to be able to paint that picture for of a future world for the customers and help position us as a guide who can help them on that roadmap as they achieve that future vision.
Sure, sure. Yeah, it might be great also just to, for the listeners that aren't familiar with Eightfold, just tell maybe at a high level what it does. Because I was not too familiar with the company before. And after I started to dig in, such cool things, like you said, with the AI interviewer. And I could see a world, I know doing myself a lot of interviews, you're limited on time. As many there's some interesting candidates that you just don't have the time to interview everybody, and there could be some real interesting diamonds in the rough that you would typically maybe have never given that initial interview to. But so I just see so many world of possibilities. But I'd love to just kind of at a high level tell everybody a little bit about the organization.
Right. And as in many startups, right, our story is very intertwined with our founders. So let me talk a little bit about the co-founder and CEO and then talk about Eightfold. So he um, probably 25, 30 years ago, he did a PhD in AI. And at that time, he worked for Google and IBM in the field of AI and personalization. Then he founded a company, which is also now a unicorn. He founded another company that was doing personalization in e-commerce. And at that time, in 2016, when he founded Eightfold, at that time, I was thinking about if we can personalize our search results, if we can, based on what the person has bought in the past, can show a recommended set of products that they might be interested in the future, why can't we do that for people's careers and jobs, which is basically prediction based on this whole career path that you and I have had. What is Christian or Nav going to do? What will be the next path for them? Or if a person says, my goal is to become a CMO or to become a software development manager or to become X, Y, and Z, what are the steps that they can take based on all the data that we've learned that will take them closer? So the reason why he was really enamored with this idea of applying these recommendations to jobs is because everyone spends so much time at work, and if we are able to make an impact in the world of work, match the people with the right work, the work that they love, it would have an enormous impact on the world. And so he started applying that to the world of work and talent and careers, and that's how the company was founded. So today, 9 years from then, we were founded on AI principles. We were founded on this data, which is based on all the talent repositories that we've seen and the talent paths and career trajectories that people have had over the years. What can we do in terms of predicting the next best path for a person? So today, companies, including Fortune 500 companies, are using our products to select the best talent. Once you hire the best talent, to retain them, how do you keep them motivated? And they're using a lot of other things, like, for example, managing resources once you are in your organization. Some of our public sector companies and customers are also using it as a workforce exchange, which means publicly available data for people who are unemployed, matching them to any public government jobs that might be available.
Yeah, that's great. Super cool work there. Um, looking at some of the research that I had done for this interview, I noticed that you guys also have a chief growth officer that's sitting alongside you. Essentially, I believe uniting product sales, customer success. How does that structure maybe change the way you prioritize your marketing investments across a brand, demand, customer marketing, partnerships, etc.?
That role really changes how not only marketing, but also product and customer success and everybody else operates, because that function really brings everybody together. So, for example, we now have a pod for this future of agentic AI. We have a pod that does marketing, the ICP, which is ideal customer profile, segmentation. Then it looks at product roadmap, looks at what's coming down the line. Um, what does sales need to make this successful? What legal frameworks do we need to have in place? What contracts do we need to have in place? What will deployment look like once we get customers? So it is really bringing all of these functions together so that it's not just marketing operating in a silo or product operating in a silo. So to answer your question, the way it changes marketing is that I have a much more holistic view of a product, from a roadmap perspective, from deployment perspective, from what our design partners have said as feedback from the product. It really changes how we think about marketing, because I have that much more data, that much more learning, and the more data you have, the better decisions you can make, especially in the age of AI. So just talking about some of the tools that I use, right? I use Google Gemini quite a lot, and um, there's a tool called Gem in Google Gemini, so you can create a gem and you can feed it all this information. And I've created Gem, who is my CMO advisor. I've created another gem who is my HR business partner, even though I have a person who is HR business partner, but I've created a gem because a lot of the work I can actually ask the gem some questions. So the reason why HR business partner is also important in marketing strategy is because we are looking at roles and how people pivot to AI first roles from a content marketer or content strategist. How do we pivot into a content engineer, somebody who uses AI tools to engineer the content, right? So we're looking at humans and job transformation as well in this new world. So just the chief growth officer gives us that much more rich data that I can feed with AI tools, work with my team to create a marketing strategy that will be much more successful.
Sure. No, I love that. Yeah, and I can see where your background in product marketing definitely, or product in general, really comes into play at a company like this. So as you think about, you mentioned a little bit about content engineers. As you're thinking about building out your marketing team, what do you see as building more in-house versus AI versus open to partnering? Like, how do you look at building out that team?
Yeah. How I think about it is start with the outcomes, right? Start with the outcome in mind. The outcome we want to achieve is, as I was mentioning earlier, the future is agentic. There will be humans and agents working together. Our customers are on this journey. We want to make sure that we are their guide. Now, that also applies to us. We are on this journey, and nobody has figured it out 100%. Like, I don't know for sure what will marketing look like 2 years, 3 years, forget about 5 years from now, because things are changing so rapidly. I want to figure out how can I use humans and agents working together. A year from now, how can I break this relationship that I talked about at the beginning of the podcast? This relationship, linear relationship between number of humans and the output that you get. So, how I think about uh, people who are employed, who are in my team, is first I want AI native people. I Instead of really focusing only on the skills they bring, for example, 10 years of experience in content writing or social media and so on, I want to focus more on on qualities like being inquisitive, being curious, being willing to learn from other companies who are AI native. Like, how do you learn from OpenAI and Anthropic? How do you learn from companies that are applying AI to specific fields like Harvey for legal, Hippocratic for healthcare, Cursor in development? So I want to hire people who are AI native and have these skills. In terms of AI tools, um, I use some of the tools that I mentioned, like Google and Gem. In terms of the agencies or partnering with others, I want agencies who are able to help me build that roadmap.
Hmm.
For example, in the future, if humans are going to create some core content and AI tools are going to create derivative content and um, make sure it's deployed everywhere and then give me an ROI on which worked best. If an agency is able to do that or bring that idea to the table, I would be more than happy to partner with the agency. But I want agencies that are forward looking, are future looking, are going to help me build that future rather than just focusing on the present.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's a good point. I know it's talking to a lot of agencies, working with them all the time. It's something that a lot of them are grappling with. What does the agency model look like, and what does their role in all of this play? And it's something that's definitely keeping a lot of agency leaders up at night. So as you think about, you mentioned you're open, to those types of agencies that bring that. Like, how do whether it be at this role or roles that you've had in the past, like where have you seen agencies have success in terms of like how do you discover them? How did you find them? How do you know that the guy next door isn't that right partner for you? Is it your network that you reach out to? Is there some other place that you go to kind of stay abreast on what's kind of happening with agencies? Like, tell me a little about that.
Yeah. So 10 years at Palo Alto Networks, I was doing marketing. And even though it was, I began in product marketing, I was like the mini CMO for network and AI, network security and AI business. So had the privilege of just watching some of the experts in each area work with. world-class agencies. For example, our social media person was working with an agency, our web design team was working with an agency. So and that had already gone through a process of like vetting and everything else. So there are some agencies that I've already seen work in my past life. So that's my first source. Either I have seen them work already or through my network. If I don't know any agency that we worked with in the past, for example, Pulse Networks, then I reach out to my friends and other people who are at senior positions,
Sure.
and I get recommendations. Then I am actually very open to agencies that might reach out to me on LinkedIn, because I believe that if you only look at the past, you're going to miss out on some of the agencies that might have a very bright idea. It might just be one person. Like look at some of these companies that I just named. Some of them are just created by college dropouts, and today have $10 billion valuation or more. So I'm actually on the lookout for newer ideas as well. The only thing is that I don't like messages in LinkedIn where they say, "Do you have 5 minutes for a chat? Do you have 15 minutes? Do you have 30 minutes for a chat?" So instead of that, I would love for them to describe what they do, what the value that they bring. Not just we've achieved 60% ROI for this customer, but maybe they can do a Loom video. Maybe they can do a video of them explaining, a 2-minute video, so that I get a good sense of what they are offering. And I actually go through my LinkedIn message, even though I don't reply 90% of them, because I am on the lookout for such agencies that will help me go into the future. I'm looking for innovative ideas.
Sure, sure. No, that's great, and I love that that idea of making the video and try to explaining versus just jumping on a call. I think it's very underutilized because yeah, you can probably know in a 2 minute video whether it makes sense to make have a call versus trying to grab a 5 minutes is even a 15 minute or a 30 minute chat. Someone as busy as your schedule. So yeah, really good insight there. Outside of say like a Loom video, are you consuming like agency content, like if they're posting thought leadership content or speaking at events or anything like that? Does any of that ever kind of cross your paths?
Sometimes. So if I am at an event, I go to events and speak at the event. So I was at ANA B2B marketing event in Florida. Recently, I was also at another event. And in that event, I go to demo booths and look at agencies and what they are doing. And I also network with people and ask for which agencies have they worked with. Um, but in general, I don't go to an event just for looking for agencies, and
Sure.
also consuming their content. Not really. I think it becomes difficult in terms of just having time to research. If I like an idea, I do send it to my team. But many of the ideas are actually coming from just a LinkedIn message, and I've actually sent some of those ideas to my team for evaluation.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think events, especially post COVID, now have become everything kind of comes full circle, and we're seeing more and more things happening at events than in the past. So that's a good insight there as well. The other question: how impressed or unimpressed are you by awards? This agency's won an Effie, or they're on the Fast 500 list. Is that something that you're taking into account or looking for, or tell me a little bit about that?
This is just a personal response, right? So you'll probably get different response from others. I don't look at that as an influence. So in my view, we all need to think about past versus future, and many of these things are past, or a rear view mirror kind of award, or I've worked with these customers in the past, right? All of these are rear view mirror kind of activities. I would love for an agency to say, this is where the future is headed, and I can help you get there, and this is how. For example, as I was giving the example of the content, right? So, how can I create a piece of content, and the agency would give me content that is very targeted to Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, LinkedIn, Twitter, because or X, because each of these has a slightly different audience and a slightly different type of content resonates, and then also being able to give me the ROI. So I know tools like this exist. This is not a novel idea, but I think I would love for an agency to say, this is what we've discovered from some new novel kind of marketing that has been done in recently. So I don't know if you know of a company called Cluely. Have you heard of them? So it's a company that was created by a person, again 20, I think 20-year old, dropped out of, he was rescinded from Harvard, I think, went to a community college, then went to Columbia, and then he was expelled from there because he created a tool that would help people cheat. So if I'm doing an interview with you over Zoom, then you would not be able to see it, but I will be able to have like a translucent kind of screen on top of me, which will listen to your questions and give me answers on that translucent screen. So it's meant for cheating, and that's how they advertise it. Although they have many positive use cases, and I think they'll have other use cases as well. But they're using very different marketing. If you look at their marketing techniques, they've hired content creators, and they only pay them if they exceed 1,000 views. Otherwise, they don't pay them. So they've hired like 700 plus content creators who had like micro influencers.
Yeah.
So that's a way to look at marketing probably in the future. And if an agency is looking at these kinds of trends and say, I'll help you create a strategy for this kind of marketing in the future, then I'd be much more open to it than somebody who's just won an award in the past.
Sure, sure. I love that. Yeah, I love the future and the trends and all of that. So, no, this has been great. I have one more question before we kind of break here. But we've talked a lot about work, right? I'd love to know, like, what keeps your own creativity and your own curiosity sharp? Is that films, books, travel, something completely different? Curious.
Yeah, all of the above, actually, all of the above. So one is kids. I have a, a daughter who is sophomore. My son is in college, is doing applied math. So conversations with them about what's happening in the world, in their world, also tells me what's up. So, for example, my daughter said, "Dad, do you know what is rage baiting?" So, so she was talking about that, and that's a thing on TikTok.
Yeah,
So I come to know. So that's one possible input. And then also, as you said, right, travel. So I travel to less frequently visited places. I do road trips. I try and do a road trip every year and do road trips in go in the wilderness. So just be by myself. And those are solo road trips that I've done many times. And then another input is just consuming content. Primarily use YouTube, but also LinkedIn and others a little bit, but primarily YouTube, consuming content in a lot of different areas. So listening to CEO interviews in many different fields, listening to people who work with AI in many different areas, many different verticals, people who've used AI with really good results. So all of those give me ideas. And then also talking to people like the team, if you create an environment where it's okay to take risks, and the team comes up with some really great ideas as well.
sure. I love that. Yeah, and YouTube. Yeah, that's a good segue then, where people can come and find interviews just like this on YouTube. So now I do want to go out and appreciate you for being here today. This was really insightful. Really looking forward to seeing what you do there at Eightfold. And everyone else watching, don't forget to follow CMO Journeys for more conversations with marketing leaders that are shaping what's next. I'm Christian Vadak. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.